Hello everyone and welcome to English 1520, the overview and announcements for week 7. First item today, the argumentation summary overview feedback from last week. Make sure you have reviewed and understood the feedback before proceeding. A few files have not been opened. I don't want to get into this too long on here, but what I'll say is this. Some students have repeat errors. Some students have repeat issues lapping over from draft to draft, component to component, and this is simply seeming to be the result of not even, not doing textbook reading, not reading the instructions that are in drop boxes, and then not reading feedback. Now, on top of those three, I still have a small handful of students who have sentence level issues that are persisting throughout the term, that are in line with remediation courses. Those need to be addressed, students, but those are a case-by-case basis, and from here on, I cannot continue to give the volume of feedback on those as I have been. There's too much to grade now in terms of the larger component pieces and the length of these bodies of work. But in terms of those other components of not reviewing feedback files, not doing the reading, and not reading instructions in those drop boxes, you will from here on out find a file on your submission that simply says refer to or review prior feedback. I'm not going to continue to make extensive feedback commentary on these things and have them not be followed, and certainly not when the files are not even open. The vast majority of students in this class are doing everything that's being asked of them and doing a very good job at it. So I want to spend my focus and attention on those students much more over the second half of the term. The argumentation outlines and works cited. Feedback for outlines should be published for most students. Everybody's got their stuff in. I'm about halfway through on these. Be published by tomorrow evening, 11:30 p.m. If there are any issues regarding feedback files, students will be contacted on a case-by-case basis. The case-by-case basis thus far are simply students who have such structural issues from prior, not addressing exactly what was on the summary overview. You opened it and looked at the feedback. Somehow you still didn't address what was on there, particularly some students who don't seem to understand their topic very well. But for the majority of students, you're getting that feedback by 11:30 p.m. tomorrow night. And in the meantime, if you did complete your argumentation outlines and works cited, folks, you should go ahead and proceed to the drafting stages. If the outline feedback that I send you suggests changes, those edits can be done during the drafting stage. There's nothing, for the majority of students, there's nothing major that you can't address during that draft. Argumentation rough drafts are due in the drop box by Sunday, the 8th of November by 11:30 p.m. The draft has a minimum requirement of 800 words, 10 peer-reviewed sources, and a minimum quote requirement, which is 2 supported quotes for your 4 paragraphs, your support, and then 1 minimum for each one of the against or oppositional paragraphs. Remember that those quotes must be MLA formatted, they must be from peer-reviewed sources, and they must include in-text citations. Be sure to see all full requirements in the Dropbox, as well as the instructions and anything that's hyperlinked in there. That's a file that includes like the rubric and instruction guidelines, anything else that's in the drop boxes. Make sure you're actually reviewing all those. There are some of you that are going to flounder over the next couple of weeks if this persists. The argumentation rough drafts are also due in the discussion board forum for the peer reviews by Sunday, 8th of November by 11:30 p.m. Students must post a draft for the review and then review and comment upon 2 other classmates' submissions by the 15th of November at 11:30 p.m. Same protocol, guys, as it was for the memoir. You put submission into the Dropbox for me and one in the forum for your classmates, both on the same date, the 8th of November. Your classmates review this one, I review this one. You get your feedback back from your classmates by the 15th. Mine should be between 15th and 17th. These are a little bit longer now, so my attempt will be to get here, but you get that feedback, and then we'll move on to final drafting. So you have that 1 week after the 8th to be commenting on 2 of your classmates to get full credit for your peer review section. The readings for week 7. Regarding further reading, I'm not launching new readings until the end of the week, end of week 7, beginning of week 8. The readings will begin with sample articles that demonstrate a cultural analysis of certain popular subjects. More on that next week. The only addition to this would be the chapter on designing, so we'll get into that next week and the week after as well. the way that you can use charts and graphs and pictures and all these different things, and then that can be in both the essay and the presentation. So some of those things are quite relevant and quite fun for some students to learn how to apply. So we'll talk about that more in the weeks ahead. If students have completed the textbook readings to date, everything that was in the course schedule so far, you'll find that the stuff from last week and the week before are still quite applicable to what you're doing right now, so those are the ones you should review. But if you're up to date on those, the only readings anyone needs to focus on are the views of the textbook sections, primarily those on argumentation, finding and citing sources, and then the peer-reviewed articles sourced from the OCC database for argumentation topics. Get as familiar as you can with both sides of the argument. This is the time for you to research, test your claims, so be thorough. This is the time to make sure you understand the topic. And as I said, there are a couple of students who do not appear to understand their topic very well. Read more of the articles. Read through opposing viewpoints and get articles that represent both sides of your argument. If you don't understand the claims that are being made originally, you have no business trying to formulate your own and then presenting it as though you do. Okay, very clear on two of them particularly. I've already made contact with one student. This is something that needs to be addressed. You need to make sure that you're actually doing this and not trying to formulate this off of something you're getting off of social media. Okay, it's an actual review and understanding of actual research. This is the time for you to go through these, and also remember that research is not simply to support your ideas on the supportive side, it's also to support the claims of your opposition. Everyone should attempt to present the steel man of their opposition as opposed to the straw man. Remember, the straw man is the fallacy that's presenting the watered-down stereotype version of your opposition. Make sure you're presenting the best possible evidence against yourself so that your argument can be ever stronger. If there's a point you can't beat and you're using inductive or deductive reasoning, either way, if there's a point you can't beat, something has got to be wrong with your, probably wrong with your syllogism if you're framing things that way, right? If you have a major premise, that's a major premise that starts off and it's flawed, the structure of your logic is flawed. The argument's not going to be one that's going to be able to stand foundationally. So make sure you are paying attention to those and you're addressing them by looking at relevant opposition. In terms of research and library videos, one more reminder about this argumentation piece and the sourcing for it. All the research for this assignment must be conducted through the OCC library databases, and all sourced and cited materials must be peer-reviewed. Peer-reviewed search engines or searches, they can be conducted through most OCC databases under the advanced search setting. I'm just reminding you of this, guys, from last week, because a couple of you still seem to have a little bit of a struggle here. Also contact those libraries. Peer review tab under that selected, just select the peer review tab under advanced search on most of them. If anyone has additional questions about peer reviewed sourcing, the databases themselves, or needs additional tips about search results, do not forget the Ask a Librarian tab under student services. I said this last week. They are there ready and willing to help, and they are looking forward to actually communicating with students. They spend a lot of time curating this information, and this year especially, they don't get much time one-on-one helping and helping students through this research, and that's actually what they love more than anything. So reach out. Do not forget that most of the articles found through the databases also include a citation already. There's a citation tab on most of those. It either says citation or it says cite, or sometimes it's just two floating quotation marks. Click on that and then select the MLA citation for the 8th edition. They can just be copy and pasted on the works cited page from here on. Just be sure to watch out for the font and format. They have a tendency to reformat in accordance with your own settings. So if you have that already going on, most of you guys on the 5 for the works cited, they were perfect. The majority of students had them just right. Some of you, the format's all over the place, and that's an indication, again, of a number of things. Not following directions, not doing the reading, and certainly not looking at the materials that are in the drop boxes for you to review on these, particularly since there was a link to a page that actually showed on the Out Purdue page that sets these regulations with the MLA standards of how this is supposed to be formatted. But in any event, that exists there. You can click on that and use that citation function, and it's pretty simple and straightforward. The 9th edition of the MLA Formatting Style Guide is supposed to be published in 2021. Minor changes to citations are expected. I'm not going to say a great deal about this. I'm just saying that students who are graduating the year ahead, you may go into the workforce and have something you're doing where you're writing research reports or you're doing analytics or something and find that some of these minor style changes are relevant to your line of work. I doubt it. The last changes were fairly minor, just had to do with things like citing blogs, and then sometimes you have things like whether or not to include a URL or time stamping or what comes at the end. They used to put print or web at the end of them, and they go back and forth. They vacillate between these two different ideas. I'm not positive as to what the changes would be. It's just a note in case any of you do graduate next year and this is something that applies to your career. There's one more library video. Most students will find the last few minutes of the video informative. The librarian explains the chat and live Zoom features that students can utilize to communicate with and get real-time assistance from one of the research librarians. So these guys up here, ready and willing, they have the chat function and the Zoom function. The librarians are ready to, at any time get into communication with you guys on any of these topics. I mean, really, I don't know how often they're doing the Zooms right now, but I do know that they're ready and prepared and willing to do them. The chat's happening quite often. The entire video, this one that's launched up there on D2L, it might be repetitive for students who are already familiar and comfortable with the databases and search features. If that's the case, just forego this video. But most of you will find that last 4 minutes about the chat and the live Zoom session pretty helpful. During this week, all students should be working on research and formulating the rough draft of their argumentation essay. Once those are completed and submitted to both the Dropbox and the peer review discussion forum, students will review one another's work in the forum, and I will review and provide feedback on the rough draft submissions. Same protocol as we did for the memoir. Once the argumentation peer review forum ends at 11:30 p.m. on the 15th of November 2020 and students have rough draft feedback from me, students will complete the argumentation final draft and submit it by Sunday, the 22nd of November 2020 by 11:30. Like I said earlier, most students will have this somewhere between the 15th and 17th. That typically only conditions on that is it goes past that as if something goes on with the submission itself. But the same Sunday, the 15th of November, that our peer review Dropbox closes, at 11:30 p.m. on that date, the Dropbox for the cultural analysis summary overview will open. Yeah, I really hope you guys all enjoy this one. This is my favorite out of many classes. I only have one assignment I ever do with students that comes close to this one. But in any event, and it's because there's a lot of leeway I can give, and it's because you get to teach your classmates and myself something, and you get to pick the topic. It's all agency is on you. But this one opens up on the 15th, the same way that you have the overlap with the memoir going into argumentation. You're going to finalize the peer review and then be doing the final draft of this argumentation piece at the same time that you're opening this up and getting going on the cultural analysis, just summary overview, but it is fairly short. The cultural analysis summary overview will also be due on the 22nd, so both of these will be due on the same dates, right? The final draft of this and the argumentation summary overview, but this one is fairly short. In closing, there are no additional announcements at this time. This week and next should be focused on research and building an argument to solve a problem. Once again, if you have questions, email me. And the time you spend this week, the more reading you do of the research, the better understanding that many of you who are kind of struggling at that lower, let's say in the B category or else, I think that a lot of the stuff there is just framing of ideas. Spend a little bit more time with that research and see how they develop their ideas, and then try and emulate what they're doing. The sentence level things that I point out for some of you guys at the mid level, those are coordination, subordination. It differs from draft to draft. Those are not the major ones. The students who have 70 to 150 marks that I'm putting every page and a half, those are a different concern. Anyways, make sure you get into the reading, folks, and spend as much time as you need to until you thoroughly understand your topic. And if you got any questions, once again, email me. And I hope you're all doing well, and I truly look forward to reading the drafts. I like when we get to these stages and students' ideas really start popping out. The memoirs were fun, but these ones and then cultural are a really good time for me. Hopefully they are for you too. Hope everybody's doing good, and I will look forward to seeing the reading. Bye, everyone.